What's up everyone, this is NyhlekDreams, and today we're having a look at another hero loadout, and this loadout has been really fun for me to play so far because it definitely added that diverse gameplay that Epic was aiming for when trying to allow us to personalize our heroes with the rework. We've got Thunderstrike Mari with the build focused around AoE damage and crowd control that also allows you to have a fast-paced in the fray type playstyle. Now, I've always been a fan of the cosmetic appearance of this hero, so I just want to point out that the most notable thing about this loadout is that we're going to be able to wear a fashionable Dargon hat. But for those of you that don't have her yet, we can go ahead and head over to the collection book to show you how to obtain her. She was part of the Chinese New Year's event, so if you just head on into the event people into the Chinese New Year's section, you'll be able to obtain her by recruiting her from the Lunar Ninjas section. But with that, we'll head over to the loadout and we'll go over that first before we hop into some gameplay to show it off. Now, this hero is revolved around the AoE damage and the crowd control like I said before. So our build is going to be focused around trying to have a survivability and then working off of what the hero actually provides. So first we'll look at the commander slot and see which commander perks she has to offer and go over the abilities as well. Then we'll look at the support slot and see how we set that up. Now, her first ability is Crescent Kick, then she's got Smoke Bomb and Dragon Slash. And her commander perk is going to be Dragon Days. When your shield depletes, knock back and stun nearby enemies for 1 second. And her commander perk to have Dragon Days Plus is when your shield depletes, knock back and stun. And it adds the 47% base damage onto that. Now, prior to the hero rework, Thunderstrike Mari actually focused as a tactical slot that worked off of the passive perk Dim Mock, and it was every time that you were in shadow stance, your shield constantly regenerated. But here, when your shield depletes, it's going to go down and you'll be able to stun and do a base damage. So every time that you're in shadow stance constantly regenerating your shield, you're constantly depleting the shield from husks attacking you, allowing for just a consecutive stun after stun on the husks that was just a crowd control monster. And we've got some base damage to just really boost that. So that's really what we're going to be trying to work off of in the support squad is focus on survivability so that we can keep proccing Dragon Days over and over again. And I've looked at a couple of different options that you could try to run with this build, but so far what's on screen with this support team is the one that I found to be the best and allow the most use out of the way that you want to try and proc her abilities. So first up with the team perk, we've got Dim Mock here. For each ninja in your support squad, your shadow sense is going to regenerate 2.7% of your shield per second, and that's actually the bread and butter of this build, trying to regenerate that shield up and stay alive while allowing that AoE damage to proc and burst off of also stunning them. So we'll have our first look here at the support team. We've got Survivalist slotted to give us some heals on husk eliminations, anatomy lessons because in order to proc your dragon stance, you're going to be wanting to use a sword or any melee weapon, but I personally prefer the spectral blade, so I went with the crit rating to pair with the crit damage build that I have on my sword. Now, the next thing that we have is Utility Belt, which decreases Smoke Bomb cooldown by 18%, and that's going to play into survivability when you pair it with Medicinal Fumes. Smoke Bomb heals allies for 10 base health per second. I don't know how many of you guys have tried to use this yet, but honestly, it is phenomenal. This gave Smoke Bomb such a boost because it really just gets you out of those, hairy situations. When you're about to die, the heals from this definitely come through clutch. And the last one here we have is In a Pinch. While this doesn't actually focus on adding any direct damage to the build, it will indirectly add it because every time you reload, your shield is going to regenerate 13.5% over the next 3 seconds, and that's adding more onto the procs with the Dragon Days from Thunderstrike Mari. And then for your gadgets, you're going to want Slow Field and Adrenaline Rush. Slow Field is for those dicey situations when you're about to get in a group of large husks and you just want to toss it out to slow them all down so you can manage the fight better. And then Adrenaline Rush for a clutch heal at the end if you're about to die. Just kind of pop it off and, save yourself and try to keep proccing that shield back up. It gives you more survivability and it allows you to last longer. But with that, we can go ahead and get into some gameplay and I'll show you how this build works. Alright, so since this build heavily relies on using AoE and triggering Shadow Stance in order to sustain your shields, as well as proc the AoE damage from Dragon's Days, what you're going to want to do is use a loadout that best suits that. And personally, I like to use the Spectral Blade for my melee weapon. And then for the AoE, I like to use the Dragoon. This could be swapped out with the Vendortech Disintegrator. But I personally feel that the Dragoon does a better job of AoE group clearing. And then for your last weapon, you can switch between 2 items. You can go with a bundle bust for more of a single target if you're not too overwhelmed with blasters around you. And just use this to pick off a couple of miss monsters here and there. If you've only got a couple of blasters, a couple takers. But if you are trying to thin the herd, you can use like a Santa's Little Helper or a Noble Launcher. I personally prefer the Noble Launcher here. But we can go ahead and go find an encampment so we can show you how to use this build and the way that it works. Alright, so the way that you're going to want to use this build is you're going to use your melee weapon to trigger your shadow stance, and while you're in shadow stance you're going to be replenishing shields. You'll switch over to your Dragoon and pop off some shots and clear large groups of husks with this. Since it's only got one shot, it's going to be able to pair really well with the In a Pinch perk, and while you're getting husk eliminations, you're going to be able to replenish your health pool if you've taken any damage there with Survivalist. Now with any hero, you're going to want to know your weaknesses. So we've got some blasters here, and the weakness for this build is you can really take a lot of damage if you don't take off the ranged fighters like the blasters and the zappers. So once those are gone, you'll be able to go in and trigger your shadow stance with the melee weapon and then switch over and keep on rotating through this cycle so that your shields keep replenishing. And if you take, large amounts of damage, you can drop the smoke bomb like I did to make sure that your health pool doesn't drop down. And you've always got the adrenaline rush on, standby to clutch if you have, really low health. But the main way that you're going to be doing this build is you're focusing, trying to keep your shields up. And if your shields go down, you're going to want to make sure that you just get out of sight and get these, make sure that these blasters aren't getting you. And then go back to your melee weapon. Just break line of sight with the blasters. And then get back in the fray. Go ahead and switch over to the Dragoon. Keep those shields replenishing. And you see how the shields and both the health bar are just constantly replenishing up and keeping us alive, keeping us sustained. We'll break that line of sight again. And kill this blaster once more. Just go back to your melee weapon and keep on replenishing those shields from shadow stance. And this is really just, I find it to be a really fun way to use a ninja and get up and, have in a close proximity fight and be able to, really engage in the fight, and you don't have to sit back and just use your ranged weapon the whole time. That's basically how you're going to want to use this build. The survivability paired with the mass amounts of crowd control from the Dragoon and the Dragon's Days makes this an interesting loadout for sure. I know there's not a whole lot of gameplay to show it off, but since the ninja hitboxes are bugged right now, it was really hard to recreate a proper scenario to really push this build to any limits and show how engaging it can be. But that's about it for this one. I hope you all enjoyed, and I recommend going and trying this one out. It's added a new dynamic to the game for me, being able to finally take a ninja into close quarters combat and not just get completely annihilated. And let me know in the comments below if there's anything you would do differently. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.